Hi guys, I have a Copic coloring and card tutorial for you today, and I'm coloring a witch Ellie with a broom by the Papernest dolls. And you might see the kind of strange form of the paper I'm coloring on. I actually made this originally as a panel card. I've been printing a lot of panel cards, which also makes me print a whole bunch of really fun sentiments. But I kind of decided that I wanted to pair her with some of the new pattern papers that I recently got, and the haul is coming up. So I just cut as close as I could towards her to get as much possible out of that sentiment, and I'm cutting it down later in the video. I decided today to again use a darker skin tone. I'm really enjoying playing around with skin tones and colors that I haven't used that much. Like black hair isn't something I usually do, and I kind of chose to do it this time. I'm using the warm grays, and I'm pairing them with an E44 as the lightest color because I wanted a more of a browner black for her hair. I also am coloring the hair at her neck a little bit darker than the hair at the front to give it more dimension, to really make that hair look like it is covered with other hairs. So that was really fun, something new to try out, something new to work on. And then for the rest of this coloring, I'm using a whole bunch of different oranges, or actually not that many. This kind of shows that you can actually get two similar but different colors by just switching out one or two pens. And not even just switching out the darks and adding a light, but just switching out the darks to other darks can actually get a little bit of a different tone to the coloring, because her hat and her kind of shirt is actually done in this darker color scheme, which is more like a terracotta. Also, the underneath part of her skirt is also, or inner part of her skirt is also colored in that color, while the rest of all the oranges in these images are using the same lights, which is the YR12 and YR14, but I'm actually adding the E95 to make both the shadows get a little bit more subtle, but also it keeps the color lighter, so you get a bit of a lighter orange. And in the pattern paper, actually not in the specific pattern paper I'm using for the card, but in the pattern paper pack, there was a paper that showed these two different oranges very clearly, that they were different, and I really wanted to use those together in one card. And then I'm actually going in working on the broom. I'm using two different E families, one on the broom handle and one of the bristles. You can usually add a whole bunch of different E's in your images without them being totally crazy, and I really liked these to kind of show that there is a big difference between the handle and the bristles, but still keeping it very subtle changes. For the rest of the image, I'm coloring with my natural grays, and the natural grays actually fitted very, very good with the pattern papers and with the cardstock that I'm using, so that's the reason why I chose them. As I usually work towards pattern papers, I really, really love having all of the different grays, because sometimes the cool gray is a little bit too cool and the warm gray is a little bit too warm, and then I have the natural and the toner grays to fall back on. But if you are just coloring and making like panel cards where you don't have other patterns or colors competing, then I would really say that you should get the cooler and the warmer grays, because they do have two very distinct different uses, while the natural grays and the toner grays are sort of in the middle, and you can use them for most things, but they don't have that big of a difference that a cool grey and a warm grey have. And also, if you are going for the greys, you can choose to buy them either in the steps of 1, 3, 5, 7, or buy them in the 0 to 4, 6 series, because I usually have one extra between, so I always count 2 steps, because the other ones can be a little bit too close to each other to give that change. Or you can use all of them, but I prefer to use just 2 steps in between. Then I am cutting out my image. I do this for 2 reasons. I'm leaving a white border because that helps to make the image stand out a little bit from my pattern paper, but also this image have that little thready thingy between the star and the hat, and you could either replace it with some twine, or when you do it like me and cut it out with this little white border, you automatically have a little bit more to stabilize that thread. And now we come to the little sentiment, which I've just used my fonts in my computer and wrote out "Have a Witching Halloween." I buy a lot of fonts because I love playing around with just using fonts in different ways. Like, for example, for my logo, I played around with fonts, and I'm having a lot of fun making my own sentiments with different kind of fonts. So I printed that out together on the panel card, and now I just cut it down. I'm using some Simon Says Stamp cardstock for the layer for the back panel, but I'm also gonna have a panel going across the card, which is just as wide as my sentiment. I'm using 2 different pattern papers because I really wanted to use this one which has black cats, but it was a little bit too busy to place the witch upon, because they kind of just melded into each other. So instead I'm using it as a part of my sentiment strip and have this little more subtle dot paper as the paper I have behind the witch itself. Then I'm just layering all the different kind of panels together to be able to get a feeling of how I want things to look. Here I've sped up it all a lot. I am actually using some of my distress inks, antique linen, and some a little bit darker. I have all the details down below on what kind of inks I used to kind of make it a little not stand out with the white as much. And as you see here, the white cardstock is a little bit too crisp, so I'm giving it the same treatment. Frayed burlap is the darker color I'm using, so antique linen and frayed burlap, I'm going around with both of them around the card base too. I would recommend letting this dry before trying to attach the card together. I used a lot of tape on the back side of this to get it to sit down because I didn't want it to dry. I wanted to finish the card. And then I'm adding Ellie onto some foam tape and adding to her on the card. And that is the card for today. I hope you liked it. If you do, please thumbs it up. It means a lot to me. If you have any questions, just comment down below and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Here is 2 other cards using the Paper Nest Dolls characters. So thank you so much for watching. Bye!